Penn State fans, old heads, everyone in between, rejoice. Penn State football has gotten another commitment, so it's always a great time to talk to the people who know the most about that. Sean Fitz, recruiting insider, publisher for Blue White Illustrated, here to give the good news. And Fitz, I always want to set you up so that you get to be the hero, to say the name and to have all the information come up on screen. So who did the Nittany Lions add to the class of 2025?
You don't have to be an old head to love LaVar Arrington. Come on, if you're a Penn State fan, he was the guy for a lot of people in a lot of generations that really appreciated him. Now his son, LaVar Arrington II, has committed to Penn State. It is a guy that Penn State has been tracking for a long, long time. His recruitment has been interesting to follow. Is he a linebacker? Is he an eventual edge prospect? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how he's going to grow, but he's got some genes, let me tell you. Obviously, his father, an All-American College Football Hall of Famer, LaVar Arrington, big-time personality, among the biggest personalities to ever come out of Penn State football. And now his son is following in those footsteps, which is an interesting path, because how do you follow a name like that? I don't know. But at the same time, Penn State seems to like him for him. And that's something that not everybody can wrap their heads around with this recruitment. But Penn State, happy to grab a commitment from defensive athlete LaVar Arrington from Covina, California. Charter Oak, plays a lot of linebacker, stand-up defensive end. 6'3 plus, 205 pounds, 207 pounds is what we have him at. So be interesting to watch this projection as he moves forward.
So we mentioned 3-star player, linebacker, defensive athlete, all of that kind of nuance goes into the star ranking, but also another California commit. This one obviously has an asterisk on the side of it, but Penn State going to another national place to look for defensive players in this particular class. It follows a trend too on defense of finding some of these guys that have hybrid abilities. I don't know. Not to put you on the spot with this, this doesn't seem like a plan. This just seems like what's available for Penn State this year, with two guys at linebacker, technically, in Deshaun Burnett and now LaVar Arrington, that have that kind of tweener ability. So I guess what's your read on Arrington's fit within the class?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a kid that kind of looks different in a couple of years, and you're not sure. I mean, similar to Deshaun Burnett in the sense that these guys are both what we would call jumbo athletes. I don't worry about the weight right now. He's, like I said, 205 pounds. So would he be a linebacker at that? That's fine. Would he be a defensive end at that? That's fine. I don't know, because it's all about 2 years, 3 years from now. He's got decent length. I think he's got good length for a linebacker, probably average length as a defensive end. So it depends what he grows into. You look at his tape, and there's a lot of stand-up defensive end. So what do you take from that? I don't know. He pursues the ball. He pursues it fast. Does a really good job. He looks like a pretty good athlete. We don't have documented times on him or anything like that, but looks like he's got some of those genes have come through. Blocked a kick, which Penn State fans would love to reminisce about LaVar Arrington going after punters. So maybe he's got those genes as well. 65 tackles, 12 sacks last year, which is a number that kind of surprised me when I was looking this stuff up earlier this week. 13 games, 12 sacks. That's a pretty good total right there. So find the quarterback, find the football. Did a good job doing that. Had an interception as well last year. So he's got some numbers. He's got some positive traits that you look at. And then on top of that, pick Penn State. I guess you could call them finalists. I hate to do the picked over game, but Tennessee and UCLA were the two schools that he took official visits to in June. But you look overall at his recruitment, Michigan, Oregon, a bunch of schools out west offered as well. Weren't in the picture at the end, so it's hard to say with which vigor they were pursuing Mr. Arrington, but it's still a pretty good list of offers. Arizona State, Colorado, Michigan State, Missouri, Utah is an interesting one to me. I think they do a great job evaluating players. So we're going to see what comes of that. It's very much wait and see type thing. He's a high 3-star prospect by all the services. We have him as an 89 overall on 3. So there's potential there, and I think the potential goes further than the name here.
Yeah, but at the same time, from what I've seen of LaVar Arrington highlights from back in the day, and I won't admit to being a Penn State fan my whole life and watching LaVar on TV, but he was also one of the biggest hybrid players that I remember, from the highlights, specifically of a guy who was a pass rusher in the NFL. I remember him more as a playing for Washington than I do at Penn State, as a guy who was a 3-4 edge rusher and somebody who had that tweener ability. Again, not comparing, and I don't want to make this about his father, but it does kind of inform when you have a guy who's a stand-up edge rusher who has the genes to grow. That's obviously a part of the evaluation here. So do all of these things add up to a player that you're saying you project positively to the future from the growth perspective and also from maintaining that athleticism that he shows, as we mentioned, a good pop and transition on tape?
You can't ignore the genes. And LaVar was a once in a lifetime type guy. Like, I mean, he was
Yeah.
something special from the time that he stepped onto the court, the field, whatever it was, middle school, high school, from the start. He was a guy that was identified like that. Now, it took a name for LaVar Arrington II to be identified like that. You don't look at him and just think that that's the same kind of athlete, and it's
Yeah.
incredibly unfair to do so. Like, I mean, there's no getting around that. But like, you turn on the tape and there's some good things there. Like the pursuit is very good. I
Yep.
think there's some instinctual things that he shows, playing off of blocks and doing some nice things. His junior tape is a little bit shorter than his sophomore tape. The sophomore tape, you could see a raw prospect sort of coming together, and I think you saw him polish some of those things off in his junior film. So I think there was progress there from sophomore to junior year, and that's obviously, when you're projecting a defensive athlete, that's what you want to see. So it's just more intriguing than anything else. I mean, you look at some of the guys that they've brought in that have been, I don't want tweeners taking it with a stigma here, but a guy
Right.
you can probably start at linebacker, maybe eventually transition to defensive end. And tell you what, without DJ McClary in the class, now all of a sudden you've got some openings at linebacker, so you have the ability to go in and work on that. And the skills that he'll learn as a linebacker could eventually benefit him as a defensive end. Obviously, Abdul Carter just made that change. But again, when we're talking unfair comparisons, LaVar Arrington, Abdul Carter, I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll find a third. These things happen.
Micah Parsons.
Yeah, Micah Parsons.
Chop
Yeah,
Robinson.
there you go. So, so I think it's a projection play. I think it's a good play. I think that this is not a guy that they just took because his name is LaVar Arrington. I think
Yep.
there's some promising traits there that we see here. And again, Keno Arrington was at Lackawanna 2 cycles ago. Penn State didn't take him. There's been guys
Yeah.
that have come through with names of great players at Penn State that Penn State hasn't taken their sons. And I think that this, you get caught up in this whole politics game, whatever, but you look at the tape and there's some things there that you like and things there that you can project to the college game. Will that hit? I have no idea. I'm not looking 3 or 4 years into the future and seeing a
Yeah.
sure thing, but at the same time, there's certainly things that you can like.
So a couple of things that I think you point out that stand out that I just want to highlight in terms of what he does on film is that backside pursuit, whether you're a defensive end or a will linebacker, is incredibly important. That ability to burst and to run to the football when you are tracking the play from the backside. I think that is a clear, tangible skill for LaVar Arrington II that, as we mentioned, whether or not it's a defensive end or that will linebacker is important. I also think it's really interesting, Fitz, in an era of passing and a time when maybe Penn State's transitioning to a lighter defense where they have a third safety on the field more often, or they're transitioning maybe even more to a base 4-2. A guy who could play like Abdul Carter at 250 pounds, Kobe King, 250 pounds in the middle of the defense, that added beef protects against the run when you've got basically a defensive end playing at the second level. That flexibility and that size advantage, and again, if he gets there, great. And if not, he's still a linebacker that I think you mentioned has great tools to play that particular position. But I do think that there's value in big defensive tackles that they have to be mobile, but big defensive tackles that can eat up some double teams, and big linebackers if you want to protect a smaller defense that is athletic and runs the football. So I think some of these decisions at linebacker are some sound choices as well to find some of these guys that maybe have those tweener characteristics, but do have the skills to fit at linebacker.
And I think you're going to see Abdul Carter play linebacker this year. Like, I don't think you're pigeonholing these guys into like definite roles here. So I
Yeah.
think maybe, and again, we're comparing this guy that's going to be something completely different 3 years from now to some of the better players on Penn State's roster, and in this case, one of the best players in Penn State's lineage altogether. So I don't know where we're going with that, but like, my question with him is his eventual home with the hand in the dirt. Like, you can see some of the traits that come along with that, the backside pursuit, the 12 sacks. he doesn't play in a lot of space, in at least the film that we've seen. So
Yeah.
it's tough to project how he drops into coverage, how he does those little things that the linebackers have to do besides stopping the run. So I think there's things to work on there, and things to, again, bring him in, redshirt him, and if he's 235 pounds in a year and a half, well, that's pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden you find something to work with there.
Yeah.
So I think that yeah, that's the guy that you decide that you want to move forward with this style of defense. That's definitely a guy that you feel good about taking.
Yeah, I guess that just the thing that I come away with is athletically, I'm comfortable with him playing linebacker. I'm not sure I felt that way about some of these guys that have those tweener characteristics where they might lean more towards defensive end, and he might as well. And I think you make a compelling case that he could be that guy eventually. But if he isn't, you mentioned his length, his size, his potential to be 235 walking around, like not having to add on extra weight. I think all of those things are positive signs and a good why you want a guy who has that kind of flexibility to fit. And I'm not going to say that there's no bust rate, but if you have the ability to play two different positions potentially in your future, it gives you the option to have another shot at it if whatever happens first in your development doesn't necessarily fit you perfectly.
And
So as we get out of here, sorry,
well,
go ahead.
if we sound like a little apprehensive, neither of us have seen him live. Like, we're not
Yeah.
sure, like going through drills and stuff. Like, this is a guy that we'd like to see live, obviously, with that body type, with that athleticism that shows on film. We'd like to see if that matches up. So, hopefully in July, if he gets out to a camp or something, that'd be great. So if you're listening, we'd love to see you camp. That's what we say about all those Penn State,
Come on down.
commits. So come on down in July if you can. But no, I mean, for the football aspect of it, good. For the nostalgia aspect of it, great. So LaVar's been a presence around the program regardless, and he's kind of a presence around everywhere. So we'll continue to see LaVar's face popping up in the future.
Anything you're looking forward to as we get out of here when it comes to Penn State recruiting and I guess the makeup of this class? I've talked a lot about that particular side on the defense, but anything that sticks out, anything to wrap us up here?
Without knowing when this is actually going to go live, because we're pre-recording this one, it's tough to say. But as we said on the recruiting show this week, there's more targets than there are spots, and that's a good thing. That's by design. That's what you want. So I think there's things that you look at receiver, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker now a bit addressed, but you maybe continue to look at a guy like Ty Jackson there and see if you can ride that one into the fall. Secondary, of course, is going to come across as well. So I think there's still a good bit out there, even though with Penn State over 20 commits, it seems like the space might be running out. But I think there's still a bit of time, a bit of juice left for Penn State to squeeze in this cycle.
And to follow along all the way into the fall, you can start out by getting the first 2 months basically for free. $1 American, as we are sometime around this great American holiday of the 4th or slightly thereafter. Code PSU1, 2 months for $1 gets you access to all that recruiting information behind the scenes at bluewhiteillustrated.com on the message board, premium articles, and all that great stuff, because we've been talking about LaVar Arrington, giving you these details in context over the last couple of months as these experts have been tracking his recruitment and the ultimate landing that Penn State fans wanted, which was in Happy Valley. So that'll do it for our latest breaking news. Please subscribe here to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our great content. We'll be back with the next one.